Hello everybody, Ellie here for WhoCulture. How are we all coping after that whirlwind of an episode this weekend? That is what I want to talk to you about actually. The Interstellar Song Contest left us with quite the huge revelation and a brilliant cameo that was so unexpected as well. But I have seen some people who maybe aren't so familiar with the classic era of the show, perhaps feeling a little bit confused and asking a lot of questions about what is a Rani, who was that mysterious woman that appeared, basically what the hell is going on and why is everyone going so crazy about this? Somebody please help and explain. Here I am, coming to explain to you all what's going on and why these two characters are so important. So let's start with the Rani. The Rani is a renegade Time Lord from the classic series, and she was first introduced in the 1985 serial The Mark of the Rani, where she was basically performing experiments on unsuspecting people and trying to extract something from their brain. Basically, the Rani is similar to the Master, but unlike the Master, she's actually a lot more intelligent and much more science-focused, as I just mentioned, performing lots of scientific experiments. Now, she's the same age as the Doctor and the Master, and they all grew up together on Gallifrey, and they all knew each other as children. But the Rani was ultimately exiled from Gallifrey, and she set about conducting all of her scientific experiments across the universe wherever she could find somewhere to continue with her questionable experiments. Now, she appeared in one more serial after The Mark of the Rani, which was 1987's Time and the Rani, where she was basically attempting to build a time manipulator, which would then give her the ability to change history and evolution and control history and evolution. Something that very much feels like it could be relevant going into these final two episodes. Is that going to be what her plan still is? Changing history? Affecting evolution? I mean, we have seen dinosaur skeletons, so that definitely could fit. Now, this story was also, Time and the Rani, was also Sylvester McCoy's first episode as the Seventh Doctor, and it was actually the Rani who caused the Sixth Doctor to regenerate into the Seventh Doctor. And also, interestingly, she posed as Mel, the Doctor's companion, who we all have met in these previous seasons. You know, Mel, who works at UNIT, Mel Bush. The Rani poses as Mel because the Doctor, post-regeneration, has amnesia and doesn't actually know who he is, who she is. So she pretends to be Mel. So that's going to be very interesting as well. There is a connection to a character who we know is going to be in these two episodes as well. So that's very, very interesting. Now, the Rani was last seen on screen in the 1993 charity special Dimensions in Time, which was a crossover with EastEnders, which is a famous British soap opera, if you're not a UK viewer and you don't know what EastEnders is. That's what it is. Does anyone else feel like there's going to be a little joke or nod or reference to the EastEnders connection here, considering the fact that the last time we saw the Rani was in an EastEnders crossover, and the last two seasons of the show have seen Anita Dobson playing Mrs. Flood, aka the Rani, and Anita Dobson is most famous for playing Angie Watts in EastEnders. Surely they're missing a trick if they don't make a joke there. I had a sneaky suspicion that this may have been where Mrs. Flood's story was heading. So, in preparation for this reveal coming, I watched The Mark of the Rani and Time and the Rani before this season began, just so that I had that information fresh in my mind, those stories fresh in my mind, heading into this season, so that when that reveal eventually came, if it was what I was expecting it to be, which it was, I didn't suddenly go, I don't know who that is, what's going on. So I've done the work for you because I did watch those episodes. It's no secret that I haven't seen all of Classic Who, but if there's something I know is going to be relevant, of course I'm going to go back and watch it. I actually really enjoyed her two stories. Obviously, when you go back and watch Classic Who, the structure of it is a little bit slower paced than what we are used to seeing now. So, you know, split into 4 episodes, there is a little bit of waffle. You kind of go, come on, get to the point. Maybe one of those episodes of the serial probably could have been taken out and some of the waffling could have been removed. But for the most part, I really enjoyed the character. Kate O'Mara played the Rani in those two stories, and she was brilliant. I really, really enjoyed watching her character. What I found very interesting in The Mark of the Rani was her relationship with the Master, because I got major sibling vibes between them. Like, there's often been speculation that the Doctor and the Master are siblings. I don't get that as much. Watching the Master and the Rani interact in The Mark of the Rani, they give off major sibling energy. The banter, the trying to outdo each other, the trying to kind of sabotage each other's work, but also working together when necessary, major sibling energy, absolutely. Now, the thing with the Rani is she is one of those villains, one of those characters who literally every single season of the show is speculated to be returning. Every single time. Especially if you know that a specific actress is going to appear in an episode, immediately there's speculation that she must be playing the Rani. And it's kind of become a bit of a running joke in the fandom at this point. But now it has actually happened. But I want to circle back to the Master. I obviously just mentioned the Master there. He did feature also in The Mark of the Rani, her first episode. And they kind of did team up to take down the Doctor. They were also kind of working against each other, but they have a common enemy. They both wanted to get rid of the Doctor. And that partnership could actually be very relevant to Doctor Who going forwards. Obviously, going into this two-part finale, we now have the Rani, we have the Doctor. The question is now, where is this heading? Have there been any clues? What do we think is going to happen next? Now, on Instagram, Russell T Davies has teased that more villains are coming, and that the two Ranis and Conrad are only 2/3 of the unholy trinity. So then the question is who is this third member of this unholy trinity? If you will, just take your minds back to the ending of The Giggle. And we had that gold tooth. That gold tooth which contained the Master, trapped there by the toy maker. And that tooth was picked up by a floating hand with red fingernails. Now, the Rani, the Archie Punjabi version of the Rani, now that we have two, she had dark red fingernails. I think at this point it's maybe a given that she is who picked up the tooth. We thought for a while that it could have been Mrs. Flood. Obviously, now we have two versions of the Rani. This one has red fingernails. Is the Master coming back? Is the Master the third member of this unholy trinity? Now, just bear with me here, because Michelle Gomez was at the premiere for season 2. And as we mentioned previously, that doesn't necessarily mean anything, and it still might mean nothing. But you know who else was at the premiere? Joe Martin. And Joe Martin appeared in last week's episode. So, is this a clue that not only is the Master returning, but it's Missy as the Master returning? As I mentioned, the Master and the Rani have history, and I picked up, as I say, I picked up major sibling energy. So is it a case of the Rani wanting the Master to return, wanting to save him or her from being inside the tooth? It's certainly possible. I can't stop thinking about the tooth. They clearly were setting something up, and even though we've been told, going to leave him to rest for a little while and all these things, I mean, I believe nothing that I'm told anymore, because it's always a lie. So if I've been told the Master's not returning, that means absolutely zilch. Means that probably the Master is returning. And then obviously when you think about Russell teasing that there are more villains to come, it feels like this is quite clearly where the story's going to go. Now, I have seen some speculation about this, and it could certainly be an interesting avenue to go down, suggesting that obviously we've seen the Doctor bigenerate at this point, we've now just seen the Rani bigenerate as well. So what if Missy didn't actually regenerate into the Sacha Dhawan Master, but actually bigenerated? We never saw Missy regenerate. We saw Missy's story kind of end. We didn't. We saw Missy, and then the next time we saw the Master, it was a different incarnation of the Master, and we just assumed there had been a regeneration. But there was also a lot of unrest about the fact that Missy had kind of gone on this redemption arc journey, but the Sacha Dhawan Master seemed to completely just contradict all of that hard work. If it was a bigeneration, that would make a lot more sense. We've seen from the brief scenes we've seen of the Rani bigenerating that they can be wildly different. We have now Mrs. Flood as this kind of lackey behind or below the Rani. So it would be interesting if Missy was still out there, and maybe Missy is the one that's trapped inside the gold tooth. I'm in two minds as to whether I want it to be someone we're familiar with or whether I want the third member to be someone new. Also, let's not forget we still have this whole gods thing going on as well. So that's still relevant, even though I've kind of focused so much on the Rani over the last couple of days that the gods are all still there. There's something still going on with that as well. I'm assuming it's all going to connect. Now, the other mystery woman that appeared in this episode only appeared to the Doctor in little snatches. And this is Susan Foreman, the Doctor's granddaughter, and she was the very first Doctor Who companion in the very first Doctor Who episode, all the way back in 1963. Now, Susan travelled with the Doctor for a little while, but then she was left behind in the 1964 story, The Dalek Invasion of Earth, to basically start a new life with her new love interest, David. And the Doctor promised that one day I shall come back. He actually didn't. Now, she did also appear in the 1983 anniversary special, The Five Doctors, and she also appeared alongside the Rani in the 1993 comedy sketch, Dimensions in Time. But quite frankly, she doesn't have a whole lot to do in either of those stories, and neither of them feel like proper continuations of her story. So hopefully what we're going to get now is a continuation of Susan's story, to find out what she's been doing in all of this time since we last saw her. I'm really hoping we're going to get an actual reunion between her and the Doctor, and this isn't it for Susan's return. Basically, what Russell T Davies has said is that he brought her back because he wanted a huge moment to snap the Doctor back from his near-death experience. And he met Carol Ann Ford at the premiere for The Star Beast, and she was happy to oblige. Now, a big question about Susan is she a Time Lord? Can she regenerate? She is the Doctor's granddaughter. But this has never been made clear. We don't really know. If you go back to 1963, in those first few years of Doctor Who, the concepts of things like regeneration, Time Lords, Gallifrey, none of those things had been invented yet. None of that lore had been created and added into the show. But one would assume that now, looking at the stories, if anyone were to create a story revolving around the Doctor's granddaughter, a character who is literally the Doctor's blood, the Doctor's DNA, that she would in fact be a Time Lord and she can regenerate. Which is certainly an interesting avenue to go down, because I think a lot of people wanted to see Susan return, but specifically wanted to see Susan return played by Carol Ann Ford. It's a similar thing to when people ask me if I want River Song to return. Yes, I do, but only if she's played by Alex Kingston. People fell in love with the character based on who played them. And so while it would be great to see that character return, it would feel a little bit off if they did return, but the original actor had been overlooked in some way. So I think it's great that Carol Ann Ford had her moment. And I guess the question now is that it? Is that her only moment? Or are we going to see more of her? I would assume we are going to see more of her. That might be me just hoping, because I really hope we do see more of her. It would be quite sad if that is all we get. But if you look at her interview for Doctor Who Unleashed, she's wearing a completely different outfit to what she wore in the clips that we did see of her. Yes, okay, that could have been her everyday clothes, but every other time you've seen actors in the show being interviewed on Unleashed, they're wearing a costume because they're being caught just between filming. So if we go by that logic, we haven't seen her wearing this outfit yet, so I would assume there's more scenes of her to come. Now also, in the clips that we saw of her, she literally says, "Find me," to the Doctor. So I'm guessing maybe, is that kind of a more general sense, try and find her? Or has she been kidnapped by the Rani? Is she trapped somewhere? Is she imprisoned somewhere? And is that more of a call to find me, save me, because the Rani's got me? Now, if you look at some of the promotional images for the upcoming episodes that were released following the Interstellar Song Contest, we see that Mrs. Flood has some keys, prison keys. Now, we obviously saw her playing the governor at the end of Lucky Day. If she's still wearing that uniform, it suggests that she's still controlling a prison of some sort. So maybe Susan is a prisoner of the Rani and the Doctor is going to go and save her. That would certainly be a good way to lure the Doctor. I mean, it worked in season 1, although it was a fake out and it wasn't actually the case. He came back because he thought Susan Triad was his granddaughter. So we know that if Susan is teased to him, he will try and seek her out. The one thing I will say, obviously we're making this video because there have been newer fans who are confused by all these connections to the classic series. One criticism perhaps of this new era is that it was kind of marketed as a good stepping on point for new fans, but obviously we've got a lot of introduction of classic characters. I think there will be enough explanation perhaps at the beginning of next week's episode to fill fans in who might not be familiar with the past connections of this character, but I also could appreciate that when this big revelation comes and it just ends and you're like, well, who's the Rani? It can be a little bit confusing. But that's what we're here for. We're here to help you out with that. I'm very excited to see where these next 2 episodes are going to go. I'm hoping that Mrs. Flood is not sidelined too much, but I think I doubt that would be the direction they go in. It would be a real shame if they do sideline Mrs. Flood now, but I think she'll be important still. I think she's still got a job to do. And as for Susan, I really hope we see more of her in these 2 episodes as well. It would be disappointing if that's all we got of her. It was so wonderful to see her, but if that's all we get, that would be a little bit sad. If you haven't already, make sure that you do check out my ups and downs for the Interstellar Song Contest. We do have a spoiler discussion coming, but obviously it may be slightly delayed if this video goes out beforehand. If this video goes out afterwards, then the discussion is already out and you should go and watch it. And we do have the Easter eggs coming as well at some point this week. So keep your eyes peeled for those as well. And if you still have questions about the Rani and Susan, then do put them in the comments down below and hopefully someone will be able to help you out with an answer there. In the meantime, I've been Ellie for WhoCulture, and in the words of River Song herself, goodbye, sweeties.